We begin today the Gemara on Daf Nun Zayin Amud Beis, 3 lines from the bottom of the page. So the Gemara here was discussing a situation. The Mishnah said that there's a suffix if a person has to cut his hair. There's a suffix if he became tameh as a Nazir or not. And the discussion becomes, how could you cut your hair if you have to cut all your hair, including your payas, and you're not allowed to cut off your payas? Like a situation where there could be a suffix. And the Gemara gave an answer to that. And then it brought up the discussion whether the lav of cutting off the payas also applies in the situation if a person is shaving all the hair on his head as well. And before the Gemara said that according to Shmuel, that lav does apply even if you're shaving all the hair on your head. Okay, so here the Gemara continues on that. This Gemara we're going to learn today, a big part of it we had already earlier here in the Masechta. Sagt the Gemara, Leime, shall we say, Akofas kol hareish, this question, whether cutting or shaving all the hair on the head, whether it's still a lav or not, Tanoi, that we have here 2 braises about this, and it's a machlokes Tanoi. The Tan Rabbanan, because in one braise we learned Reishay. The Torah says that all the hair of a person's body when he's a mitzayda has to be shaved. So there in the pasuk it says that he should shave kol sa'ore, all hairs, and then afterwards it spells out zekanoi, and it also says Reishay, the hair of his head, and zekanoi, his beard. Why does it have to specify Reishay? It already said all this here. What's it coming to teach me? It's teaching me as follows, because the pasuk tells us there's the lav of cutting off the payas. So yachalaf mitzayda kain. I would think that lav applies to a mitzayda as well. So even though the Torah says as kol sa'arai, I would think that means to shave all the hairs of the body, but not the hairs of the payas. So Talmud Leima Reishay. So therefore the Torah specifies specifically Reishay that you do have to cut off the payas as well. That's one brayse. So here we see that you need a special pasuk Reishay to teach me that the mitzayda has to cut his payas as well. Now, in a second brayse, we learn what this word Reishay is coming to teach me. Reishay ma Talmud Leimar lefi shenema gabi Nazir. What we're speaking about is a mitzayda that also became a Nazir. So now, by a Nazir it says Ta'ar lo yaver al Reishay, that he's not allowed to shave or cut any hair from his head. So Yachalav Nazir Mitzayda Kain. So I would think that a Mitzayda that's also a Nazir, so when he concludes his tzaras and he has to shave all the hairs on his body, that he shouldn't be allowed to cut the hair he shouldn't be allowed to cut the hair, because he's a Nazir, not allowed to cut any hair. Talmud Loima Reishay. So therefore the pasuk says by the Mitzayda that even though he's a Nazir, he should cut off the hairs on his head. Those are the 2 braises to explain what the extra word Reishay is speaking about. Says the Gemara, my lav Tanoi. So don't you think that right here I have a machlokes Tanoim, whether shaving all the hair of your head, including the payas, whether that's a lav or not?
But Reishay does not say by Nazir.
It says it by Mitzayda. Right. So it's an extra word. What's it coming to say? It's coming to say that the Mitzayda has to cut all the hairs of his body, including Reishay when he's a Nazir. That's the chiddush of the word.
I understand that, but the limit of that have a kafir that says that you not have a kafir, and that's why I said Reishay, that's understood, because we're all talking about Mitzayda. Okay. Over here,
it's a Mitzayda as well. We're talking about Mitzayda as well. A Mitzayda that's also a Nazir. If this Mitzayda is a Nazir, it's telling you that even though he's a Nazir, he still has to do his mitzvah of a Mitzayda to cut off the hair. That's why it's saying Reishay. So Dr. Gemara, my lav Tanoi. So here we see that it's a machlokes Tanoi. Laman the Omar mi Nazir, or the Bachir is greatest. Laman the Omar the Nazir, that the pasuk Reishay is coming to say that even though he's a Nazir, still he has the mitzvah to cut the hair as a mitzayda. Kosavar hakafas kol hareish leishma kafa. So his opinion is that cutting off all the hair, including the payas, that's not a lav. That's not a problem. There's no lav of hakafa. So therefore, you can't say that Reishay is coming to say that he's allowed to cut off his payas. It's a chatchila no lav. There's no issue b'chlal. If he's cutting off, if he's shaving off all the hair of his head, so therefore you have to say v'chi asikra lemitchi es loisas v'eset. So instead, we have to say that the extra word of Reishay is coming to tell me that the mitzvah of this mitzayda to shave all the hair on his body is coming to be doiche the loisas and the asay that a Nazir has not to cut any hairs from his head. Right? By a Nazir, it's not only a leisese that he's not allowed to cut his hair, but it's also an essa. Kodesh yeh gadol per asar Reishay. So it's both a leisese and essa. So the essa of mitzayda, the mitzvah he has to cut his hair, pushes off the fact that he's a Nazir, which is both the Leisa Esa and the Esa. That's according to the second Braisa that we just had here. But the first Braisa, Sava holds, Hakafas Kalarei Shma Kafa. Even when you shave all the hair on your head, it is the lav of cutting off your payas. And therefore, so when the pasuk is coming and saying Groishay, there's no reason to jump to such a big chiddush to say that by a Matzeira, if he became a Nazir, that he still has to cut off all his hair and push off both the Esa and the Loisas of the Nazir. No, the pasuk is just coming to say that we push off the lav of cutting off your payas, but not more than that. That's the understanding here of this machlekes.
And if he becomes a Nazir,
so according to this, if he becomes a Nazir, then he wouldn't be able to cut his hair because it's a Nazir is a lav and a Esa, so it doesn't push it off. I only know that it pushes off a lav. That's what it would come out. The Gemara will soon explain that even according to this man the Amar, there's another source to say that it pushes off the Esa and the Leis Esa, as we'll see. Amar Rave, so Rave says, no, not necessarily is this the basis of their machlekes. The Kula Alma, I can tell you, both of these braises agree, hakafas kol hareish lo yishma kafa, that when you shave all the hair on your head, so you're not being over the lav of cutting your payas. So when over here, when the pasuk says, according to the first braisa, it's coming to say that you shave off and cut your payas. What is it referring to? Kagayin shehikif ulebesayf gilach. When this Mitzayda is cutting off, he's shaving the hair on his head, he doesn't shave all the hair on his head and then the payas. He first cuts off his payas, and he leaves the other hair on his head, and then afterwards he cuts the hair on his head. So it comes out that b'shas he's cutting his payas, this other hair that he leaves still on his head, so he's being over on the lav. So kivin, now what the pasuk saying over here is kivin the ilu golche. Since if he would be shaving off all the hair on his head, including the payas, so he would not be chayiv for the lav of cutting off the payas, because that in such a case where you're shaving everything, then there's no lav. So even if he first rounded and cut off his payas, and then he shaved the rest of the hair on his head, he also won't be chayiv. That's why it needs a special pasuk of Roisha to say that a Mitzayre is allowed to cut off his payas, even if he's first cutting his payas. But taka, if he would be shaving all the hair on his head, then I would say that everybody agrees that there's no lav at all to shave all the hair of the head, including the payas. But the Gemara asks on this, you can't say such a thing. Umi kasav kra hachi. Could you say that this is what the Torah is writing here, that this is what the Torah is coming to teach me with this extra word of Roishai, that this person has an option. He can shave all the hair of his head, and then there's no issur of cutting payas. Or he can cut first the payas, and then afterwards he shaves all the hair of his head. And the Torah is saying that he's even allowed to do it in that way. How could you say that? Rish Lakish said, anytime you find that there's a conflict between an esa and a leis esa, that you're going to fulfill the mitzvah say, and it's going to have to push off the leis esa. So now, if you're able to fulfill the esa, and not be over on the leisa, so you can fulfill both of them. So mutiv, so that's what the Torah wants of you. That's the best. Vim lav, but if it's not an option, if you have to choose one over the other, so which one is going to push off what? Yavei ese v'yitches leisa ese. So the ese pushes off the leisa ese. So over here, if you have an option, the Mitzayr has to shave all the hair on his head, and he has the option to do it in a way that there won't be any lav of cutting the payas, because he shaves all the hair of the head at one time. So of course you'd be obligated to do it that way. He's not allowed to first cut off the payas and then afterwards shave the rest of the hair of the head. So you can't say that that's what Reisha is coming to teach me. So Ella, rather the Gemara says an opposite pshat. The Kula Alma, both of these braises, everybody agrees, hakofas kol hareish shma kofa. When you shave all the hair of your head, including the payas, you actually are being over on the lav of cutting all the hair of cutting the payas. So now, what's the pshat in these two braises here? The second braisa that says that the extra word Reisha is coming to teach me that the mitzvah of the mitzvah to shave all the hair of his body pushes off the lav and the essa that a Nazir has not to cut his hair, and he doesn't say that it refers to the fact that it pushes off the lav of cutting the payas. Why doesn't he say that? Why does he go to our case of a Nazir? The answer is lav gereide minole because he already had a different source for the fact that the mitzvah of the mitzayre to cut off his hair pushes off a lav. And from where does he see this, that this mitzvah pushes off a lav? He learns it from a different place. Yalef, he learns it out from this that it says, Migidilim, by the mitzvah of tzitzis, when the Torah writes, Migidilim tasalacha al arba kamfis ksuscha, the pasuk of tzitzis. And what does it say right over there? The Amakra, and right after that, the pasuk says, Lesilbash shatnes, that you shouldn't wear shatnes. So what do we learn out from this? That the Torah writes the mitzvah of tzitzis together with the lav of shatnes. So Tanya, we learned in the Braisa, Lesilbash shatnes, that you shouldn't wear shatnes, but gedilim taslucha mehem. However, you could have tzitzis that are made from shatnes. Why? Even though the shatnes is a lav, but tzitzis is a mitzvah saseh, and a esse is doicha lois esse. This is the source from the shatnes and the tzitzis. Okay, so the point is, the Mandamar in the second Braisa held, you can't say that the pasuk Roisha is coming to say that the mitzvah saseh of mitzvah to shave all the hair of his body is coming to push off the lav of the payas, of cutting the payas, because for that we already have a source for this concept that a esse is doicha alois esse by tzitzis, and the same would apply here. Here, when the Torah writes Reisha, it's telling me a bigger chiddush that in this case the esse of the mitzvah to shave the hair of his body pushes off the lav and the esse of a nazir not to cut the hair. That's according to this man Damar. Okay, the Gemara now will explain different details here. Both of these man Amrim, how they learn these psukim. So the Gemara says now, man the nafkalei meiraishai. So now the first brayso that said before, that we do learn out from Reisha, that it says here by Mitzayre, that the mitzvah saseh of Mitzayre pushes off the lav of the cutting the payas. So he holds that this is the source of esa doichaleis esa. My time leinafkalei me gedilim. So why didn't he learn this concept out already from the pasuk that it says by tzitzis? Why does he have to learn it out from here? The answer is, I'll tell you, the pasuk that it says over here by tzitzis doesn't teach esa doichaleis esa. Comes to teach a different concept which Rava explained. The Rava asked the question that there is a contradiction here in the psukim regarding tzitzis. Ksiv, in one pasuk it says regarding the tzitzis, v'nosnal tzitzis hakonof. The word hakonof is an extra word. It says v'nosnal. It says already before in the pasuk that the tzitzis has to be al kamfe vigdeyim, on the corners of the garment. Then when it says again that you have to put tcheles, so it could have just said v'nosnal al tzitzis psil tcheles. That it should be also a string of tcheles. Why does it have to say again hakonof that it's on the fringes, on the ends of the beged? So the answer is, what we learn out from this is min konof, that the tzitzis have to be of the same type of material as the corner, as the garment itself. That's one pasuk. Okay, the words psil tcheles here are extra, and the Bach takes it out. Now, so the contradiction here is, there's another pasuk that says tzemer upishtim yachtov, and from this that it says, when it said the pasuk we just quoted before, it says gedilim tasalacha, and then it says tzemer and pishtim. What do we understand from there? That it doesn't matter. You can have garment that's made from material of wool, or it's made from linen, and either way you can make the tzitzis. It doesn't have to be of the same material as the garment itself. So one pasuk is emphasizing hakonof, that it does have to be the same min, and from this other pasuk where it says gedilim, the mitzvah of tzitzis, and right afterwards it says tzemer on pishtim. So from this hekish we understand that means that it does not matter if the tzitzis is the same material as the garment. So okay, how do I answer this contradiction? Tzemer upishtim paitrim bein b'minam bein shalei b'minam. Specifically, wool and linen, if you have that, the strings are from wool and linen, they will be good for the mitzvah, whether it's the same type of material as the garment itself or not. But shar minin, if your tzitzis is from other types of material, let's say it's from silk or whatever other kinds of material, b'minon paitrin shalei b'minon ein paitrin. So then it has to be, the tzitzis has to be the same material as the garment itself. If it's not the same as the garment itself, you're not going to be yetz to the mitzvah of tzitzis. Okay, that's what Rava learned out here from these two psukim. So the point is that we see here that Rava explained that when by the pasuk of gedilim and tzemer upishtim, it's not coming to teach me esse, doichaleis esse, rather it's coming to teach me another halacha regarding tzitzis, that if the tzitzis is made of tzemer and pishtim, it doesn't have to be the same material as the garment itself. So therefore, according to him, the source of esse doichaleis esse comes from the extra word of roishai that it says by the mitzvah, that he can cut off his payas as well.
The tzitzis has to be tzimah Christian. The gum can be something else.
Right, exactly.
And if it's
silk, so then it has to be the same material. So now, according to this, the first brayso that says that what does Roshai teach me? That the mitzvah, his mitzvah, pushes off the lav of cutting the payas. So the asi esse v'dochi es lois esse ve'esse minolan. From where does he learn out this concept that the mitzvah of the mitzvah pushes off even a essa and a lois esse if he would become a nazir, and there's a essa and a lois esse not to cut his hair, but the mitzvah of mitzvah would push off both essa and lois esse. Where does he learn out that concept from? So the Gemara says, Nafkelei, he learns it out from another extra word that it says there in the pasuk, Mizakonai. It also spells out that he should cut his beard. Why does it have to say cut his beard? It already says Kol Sarei. So the Tanya, we learned in the Brayso, says, why does it have to say that the Mitzvah cuts his beard? The fish and Emma, because there's a law where the Torah says, that they should not cut the hairs of their beard. And this pasuk, pas kanom lo yigalecho, it actually says specifically by a kohen. And by a kohen, the Torah also says a mitzvah saseh. The Rishonim here quoted, the Rosh here quotes that by the Kohen, it says over there, Kedoshim Yu, and the Kedoshim Yu that it says there by a Kohen goes also in this, that he has to keep his beard. So it comes out that for a Kohen not to cut his beard is both a Esse and a Lois Esse. So Yochel Af Kohen Mitzayre Kain. I would think that a Kohen, if he's a Mitzayre, so he can't cut his beard. So the Torah says a kanai that he could cut his beard. So from here I see by the kohen cutting his beard, it means that the essa of mitzvah to cut the hair pushes off a essa and a lois essa, because by a kohen it's both a essa and a lois essa. Says the Gemara, Uman the mapik le'lereishai le'esse v'lois esse. Before we said that the second brayso said that we learn out from the word reishai that the mitzvah of mitzvah pushes off in the case where he's a nazir. It pushes off a essa and a lois essa, leilaf mizakanai. Why doesn't he learn it out from the word zakanai, the way we just explained it? Instead of learning it out from the word reishai, when he's a nazir, you can learn it out from the word zakanai regarding a kayin. If a kayin is a mitzayda, so the mitzvah to shave the hairs on his body pushes off the essa and the lois essa that a kayin has not to cut his beard. So the Gemara explains, no, you can't learn from there, because the Gemara asks, now, according to your reasoning, according to your question, the kaim alon va'alma, this that we always know b'chlal, the rule always is, the loy asi essa v'dachi es lois essa v'essa. You never say that an essa pushes off both the lois essa and an essa. That's always the rule. So the question is, why are you saying that? V'leileif mikayin, the dachi. Why wouldn't we learn out right over here from this case of a mitzayra that's a kayin, that we say that the mitzvah saseh of the mitzayra pushes off the essa and the lois essa that the kayin has not to cut off his beard? So this should be a source, as a rule, for other places in Torah as well, that we say such a thing. So Ella, the answer is, Mikayin lo yalfinon. We can't learn from here to anywhere else that a essa pushes off a lois essa and an asay. Why? Because the case that we say this by a kain is different, because ma'ala kain shekein lav she'ein shava b'kail. The lav that there is for a kain not to cut off his beard is not a stringent lav similar to other lav, and because it's a lav that's not similar for everybody. By the kain, it's a lav for the kain that applies only to the kain himself, but it doesn't apply to it only applies to zacharim, to a zachar, not to an akeva, and so therefore it's not a lav that's shava b'kail. So therefore you can't learn out from here to anywhere else that a essa pushes off the essa and the lois essa. So therefore I say the same thing. Nazir mikayin nami lo yalef. So you can't learn out on Nazir, this that we said that a mitzayre, if he's a Nazir, that it pushes off the essa and the lois essa of the Nazir, I can't learn that out from the kayin. Shekein lav she'ein shava b'kail, because as we said, by kayin, it's a lav that's not shava b'kail. It only applies to a zachar and not to an akeva. This lav not to cut off the beard. Mashenkin a Nazir, the mitzvah of a Nazir, that applies by a Nazir, it applies to men, women equally. Anyone that accepts upon himself to be a Nazir applies to everyone the same. So over there, it's a more stringent lav and the essa, both. So from there, this man held, you have to have a separate source from Roshai that the mitzvah of the mitzvah pushes off the lav and the essa.
He turned around the whole thing.
Why?
We were trying to learn out that how do we know by kayin you're allowed to do that. Mm-hmm. And he's saying, then it said, so what's he saying over here? That kayin is different.
Get correct. Even if you'll have a source from zakana,
you have an extra pasuk, so that's why you're learning out for kayin.
Okay, but you can't learn from kayin to a nazir. From kayin to a nazir, you can't learn out. You have to have the pasuk roishai to say that to teach me that a Nazir can cut off the hair.
A kain is also a Nazir. That's the way we say.
No, a kain that's a Mitzaira. Right, confusing. Yeah, there's a kain, there's a Mitzaira that's a kain, and there's a Mitzaira that's a Nazir. In both of those situations, it would be the mitzvah of the Mitzaira that pushes off a essa and a loisesa. Either the essa and the loisesa of the kain, not to cut his beard, or the essa and the loisesa of the Nazir, not to cut the hairs. So what the Gemara is saying is you can't learn them from each other. Or you can't learn Nazir from kain, rather, that is. Because kain is, the lab over there is not shava bakal. So therefore he says that from Rashi you learn out that if this Mitzaira becomes a Nazir, that he can push off the essa and the loisesa of the Nazir. So now, man, the maikim lahai Rashi ben Nazir. So now, if so, according to this opinion that we just said, that what does Rashi say? Rashi says that this Mitzaira that's a Nazir, that he has to fulfill his mitzvah of tzaras and cut off the hair. So lama li zakanai. According to him, what do you learn out from the word zakanai? That's extra. Says the Gemara, mi bayale. According to him, what you learn out from here is something else. Like the Tanya, based on what it says in the following brayse. The Bach here actually erases the next few lines of the Gemara. Okay, but let's read what it says here in the Gemara. Basically, the point that the Gemara is going to say is that according to this Manda Amar, from the extra words of Kanai, that it says by the Mitzaira, it comes out that I could understand that a Mitzaira has to shave all the hairs of his body, specifically with a razor, not with a scissor or any other way. Dafka with a razor. That's what Zakanai is going to end up teaching me. Let's see. So first of all, the brayse that we quoted before, why does it have to say the Torah zakanai? That the Torah says that a kain is not allowed to cut his beard. I would think that a kain that's a mitzaira is not allowed to cut his beard. Talmud loymar zakanai. So therefore, the Torah has to say zakanai that he does have to cut the beard off of his body. Now, this is the main point. According to this Manda Amar, Zakanai comes to teach me that with this that he has to cut his beard is going to be dafka with a razor. Now, from where do you know that when the Torah writes over here Zakanai by the Mitzaira, it has to be dafka with a razor? Because there's a brayse that explains the isser of cutting the beard always is only with a razor, because it says you shouldn't shave off the beard. I would think av gilcha b'misperayim yechayev. That even a person that cut off a beard with a scissor or without a shave, without a razor, that is, I would think that you're also chayev for cutting the beard. Talmud Laima, so there's another pasuk that says v'lei sashches, don't destroy the hairs. What does leisashches mean? Only a razor that cuts very close to the skin, it takes out the beard to the roots. But if you're cutting with a scissor, it doesn't cut so close to the skin, so it doesn't destroy the beard completely. Now, leisashches, the Torah says leisashches. I would think person that cuts his beard with a malket, a berhitni, a plane, or a carpenter tool, and he uses this tool to cut the hairs from his beard in an unusual manner. A chayiv that he's chayiv, he would be for that as well. So the pasuk says over here, we just quoted the paskanim leigalechu. Leigalechu means that it has to be someone only that shaves his beard in the usual way, using a usual tool, a usual utensil that's used to shave the hairs of the beard. So therefore, what do we understand from this? So when are you chayav a person that shaves the beard and it's completely shaved, completely destroyed? So that's only with a razor. Okay, so now what do we understand from this? So what the Gemara is trying to say over here is, since the whole isser to shave the beard is only with a razor, so when the Torah writes the extra word zakanai by the Mitzaira to tell me that a Mitzaira does have to shave off the beard, why is the Torah telling that to me? It must be that by the Mitzaira it has to be done with a razor. If a Mitzaira could fulfill his mitzvah of shaving all the hairs of his body without a razor, so then the Torah wouldn't have to tell me especially that he could shave off his beard. Because there's no chiddush in that. The lab of shaving off the beard is only with a razor, and he could do the mitzvah without a razor. So why does it have to specify that he even has to shave off his beard? So the Torah is writing zakanai to tell me that chiddush, that he could shave off his beard. That shows me that the mitzvah of the Mitzaira to shave off his beard is with a razor. So therefore we understand, so basically according to this Manda Amar, comes out the Torah is writing zakanai to let me know how a Mitzaira cuts the hairs of his body, dafka with a razor. Says the Gemara Vaiter. Now in this next piece over here in the Gemara, there are various opinions in the Rishonim how to learn this. So I'll tell you one shot over here. According to the first opinion that we brought before, that said that Reisha is coming to teach me that you can cut off the payas. But the question is, why do we have to have both of these psukim, Reisha and Zakanai? What's the Gemara is asking over here? So the Gemara explains. The question is, Mashma lemitchi lav grede, umashma lemitchi loisase v'asei. Both, according to what we learned until here, it comes out that both of these psukim, the pasuk that it says Reisha and the pasuk that it says Zakanai, could either be coming to teach me that it's deicha alav, or it could be coming to teach me that it's deicha both, loisase and an asei. What does the Gemara mean by this? What the Gemara means to say is, when it says Reisha, either Reisha could be coming to tell me that it pushes off the lav of cutting off the payas, as this Mandama said before. Or Reisha could actually be referring to a Nazir. He's a Nazir, and therefore it pushes off a loisase and an asei when he's a Nazir, in order to fulfill the mitzvah of a mitzvah. And the same thing when the Torah writes Zakanai. Zakanai could either be coming to tell me that it pushes off a lav, or it pushes off both a lav and an esa. Why? Because before we said that Zakanai refers to the lav and asay, that it says by a kohen, not to cut his beard. But that's only by a kohen. By a kohen, to shave off the beard is a esa and a lois esa. By every yid, there's also a esa to cut off the beard. But by a yid, it's not a esa and a lois esa. It's only a lav to shave the beard. By a kohen, it says additionally, kedoshim yiyu. So what the Gemara is basically saying is that whether you're learning out from Reisha, whether you're learning out from Zakanai, you could either apply it to be coming to tell you that it's deicha only a lav, or you could say it's coming to tell you that it's deicha both a esa and a lois esa. So if so, the question is hilkoch shakulhu, whether you're learning out from Reisha, whether you're learning out from Zakanai, to tell me, whether you're learning out to tell me that we're pushing off a Nazir, the lav and the esa of the Nazir, whether you're learning out from Zakanai to tell me that it pushes off the esa and the lois esa of a kohen, it's the same thing. So v'yavayu shnayim, so you have both of them. So why do you have to have both to learn out from Reisha and from Zakanai to tell me that this mitzvah of mitzvah pushes off the esa and the lois esa? That's the Gemara's question. So the question the Gemara is asking now, based on the whole hemshech that we just learned now, is a little bit problematic. The Gemara before explained that Reisha is coming to teach me that it pushes off the lav of cutting the payas. That's the first extra word we have here. And then we have another extra word, Zakanai. So the second extra word comes to tell me that it pushes off the lav of cutting the beard, which is both the esa and the lois esa. That's the way the Gemara explained it till now. So what's bothering the Gemara over here right now when the Gemara says that they're not, that one of these words is still extra? It's not clear here in the Gemara what it's trying to say. So Taisvis, and one of the pshatim that Taisvis says explains that because we just said that the word Zakanai is really not extra at all, because the word Zakanai is coming to teach me that when a Mitzayre has to shave the hairs of his body, it has to be done with a razor. So Zakanai is not extra. So if so, this halacha that we said before, that Zakanai teaches me that the kohen has to shave the hairs and eat a beard as well, even though it's a esa and a lois esa, how are you learning it out from Zakanai? If the Zakanai has to be written to tell me that it has to be done with a razor, so how do you know that this applies to a kohen as well? So Elamai, the Gemara is sort of right now is having charata of the point that it said before. The two words Reisha and Zakanai that we're learning out, that it includes even cutting off the payas, and it includes even a Nazir, it's not because, or a Nazir and a Kohen, it's not because these are extra words necessarily. It's not extra. The reason we're learning it out is because when the Torah writes that the Mitzayra has to cut off Reisha and Zakanai, because it writes it stam, it writes it without specifying who it's referring to. So from that I understand that it includes everybody and anybody, no matter what situation you're in. Whether you're a Nazir, whether you're a Kohen, whether it's a esa, a lois esa, you always have to cut off the hairs of the body. So because right now the Gemara understands that it's learned out because the Torah writes it stam and it doesn't specify. So if so, the Gemara asks, the fact that it writes Reisha would be enough to say that stam, that everybody has to cut off the hairs of his head, including a Nazir, which is a esa or lois esa. Or if the Torah would write Zakanai, and it writes Zakanai stam, that would mean even a kohen that has to cut off the hairs of his head, whether it's a esa or lois esa. It's not necessary. If so, it's not necessary for the Torah to specify both. So the Gemara answers on that that Kayin min Nazir lo yalef. No, it does have to say both of them separately. Raishay to tell me that even if he's a Nazir, he has to shave his hair as a Mitzayra, and it has to write Zakonai that even if he's a Kayin, that he has to shave his beard. Why? You can't learn them out from each other. Kayin min Nazir lo yalef. You can't learn out a Kayin from a Nazir. Sheken yeshna b'she'ela. By a Nazir, there's a specific leniency in his lav, because the lav of a Nazir, he could always request a heter for his Naziris and undo his Naziris. And the same thing, on the other hand, Nazir mikayin layalef. I can't learn out Nazir from Kayin, as we already said before. There's a certain leniency by a Kayin, and that is shekain lav she'ein shava b'kail. The lav of a Kayin not to cut his beard is not a lav that applies equally to everybody. It's only by the Kayin, the men, not by the women. So you can't learn them out from each other. That's why the Torah has to write separately that the lav of the mitzvah of Mitzayre pushes off the lav and the eseh of a Nazir and the lav and the eseh of a Kayin. Like Gemara concludes, Uba'alme lo yalfina minayu b'chlal, regarding any other situation in Torah, we never learn out from both, not from the Kayin and not from the Nazir, that a eseh will push off both the eseh and the leis eseh, because, as we just refuted, that over here, by Nazir and Kayin, the lav by them has a certain leniency to it, and therefore I can't learn out from here to the rest of Torah that a eseh pushes off a regular lav and a eseh. The Yishayna do ask the question on this, though. Usually the Gemara says there's a concept called tzad hashava, that even though each one has their own leniency, but if you put them both together, you should be able to learn them out from here at the Kol HaTorah Kula. The Yishayna speak about this, what the answer to that is. Okay, we'll stop over here for today. The next piece goes into the next sugya there.